When I stood next to Janet and we were talking, that I had entered what I call a no BS zone.
One of the first times I met her, she brought banana bread to one of our coordination meetings. I knew I'd work well with her because I'm also a baker.
She didn't have to think about what her views were on a particular topic. She knew herself, and there was this fearlessness.
We became friends very quickly.
My husband Andy and I were fortunate to meet Janet Smith through our daughter Anna Bachman, who both admired and loved her. She decided to go to grad school and was accepted at some very prestigious schools. But in her research on schools, she ran across Janet Smith and some of her work, and she decided she wanted to study with her. Janet demonstrated to all the students that you had to be persistent, smart, and strategic to be successful.
I remember sitting down in her office and she just said, "So what are we doing?" And of course I start pulling out all my papers, and what I remember in that moment was just this feeling ultimately of support, but also of room to do what I needed to do, to trust my instincts. Those instincts were always going to be met with support and with real advice.
One of the things I always like about Janet Role as an academic was she didn't allow her status as an academic to tower over those folks in these community meetings. The Voorhees Center ability to bring their students, urban planners, into the communities in which they were studying, I think was key to really give students a hands-on approach.
And I think it takes a character in your life like Janet to be able to come in and help you see the forest and the trees in all of these complex challenges.
She understood what was going on in the city. And to know a place like Chicago is to understand the fundamental factors in urban America writ large.
She, was fun to work with, easy to work with, didn't make you feel stupid when you asked questions about complicated data issues, and really helped the Rehab Network establish ourselves in a way that we could connect housing market trends with what was happening in people's lives. I don't know where we'd be without our relationship with Janet.
We were equally likely to sit down and have a meeting and talk about deep technical details involved in telling stories about neighborhoods through quantitative data, as we were to sit and think about organizing strategies and tactics.
I don't know if people realize that she really put her neck out there on behalf of the poorest people, in our city, people who are at risk of displacement, not only from their home, but also from their community.
At the time that Janet was elected board chair of the UAA board, I was a new executive director. One of the first things she did, having inherited a financial and a legal crisis that the organization was going through, was she called me.
She wasn't intimidated by power. She was willing to ask questions out of turn.
The previous board chair had preferred to kind of keep me out of the fray. Janet took a completely opposite approach. She called me and said, "Margaret, what are we going to do about this mess?" Only she didn't use the word mess. And from that point on, I knew that we were working as equals.
One of the things that I learned from Janet is that being a professional actually means bringing your whole self, your passions, your realness to everything that you do.
She had this way of identifying exactly the right working professional or exactly the right project highlight to make critical concepts, really challenging ideas, clear and simple, and to bring real new understanding.
Just remember the impact that our decisions have on the community. I think that's one of the strongest statements I ever heard Janet Smith make to students.
You're grappling with the intersection of daily life, with human needs, with policy and politics.
Not everyone is going to be a Janet Smith. Okay, that's like waiting for a celestial event that occurs once every, 1,000 years. But that doesn't mean you can't have an impact.
You go to undergrad to select your tools. You go to grad school to sharpen them. But then you need somebody like Janet to say, all right, what are you going to draw?
So fill your toolbox, come prepared, and bring the honest you that you know, and that your place and your role needs to be something that fits you as an individual. She wouldn't want you to try to be a carbon copy of her. She wasn't trying to copy anybody. Yes, she was inspired by other people, often sustained and encouraged by others, but she was uniquely Janet Smith.